Right now it is time for Food for Mood with Dr. Judy Wurtman. Judy is the co-author of the Serotonin Power Diet, serotoninpowerdiet.com. Also, Simon Loses His Tummy. Her latest book is Before Her Voice Was Still. Ladies and gentlemen, here she is, Dr. Judy Wurtman. Good morning.
Good morning, and my apologies for delaying on sending things to you. I think my memory has somehow vanished with the drought.
It's either that or the virus.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
A virus called not paying attention. Anyway,
all right, so first and foremost,
plagues most of us. Anyway, it occurred to me that this blog really, or our discussion really, is about food for mood. And I'll tell you why. I spoke to a friend of mine who I'm about to see in a few days. We haven't seen each other for months, and she sort of said, well, I'm a little heavier than the last time you saw me. She's been very conscious about her weight for years. And she said, I just can't stop eating chocolate. She said, it's what I eat every single night. I can't go to bed without eating it. Sometimes I even eat it during the day. She said, I think I must have a binge eating disorder because it's something that is just uncontrollable. And I knew that she'd been going through an extraordinary amount of stress related to the virus because of family members who got sick. Thank goodness they recovered, but several got sick, and she had two colleagues, one relatively young, who died. This is really way beyond what many of us, thank God, have experienced. And she said the only way she really dealt with this was by eating any kind of chocolate she could get her hands on. She had it delivered because she was afraid to go to the grocery store. Okay. And so she had done some research, and she thought she had a eating disorder called binge eating disorder. And that is a well-defined eating disorder that many people may have, especially women, in relation to feeling quite anxious or depressed. Even sometimes people have it because they have obsessive-compulsive disorder. And what it means, in terms of the Psychiatric Association, is that the binge eater, tends to consume an amazing amount of food, much more than the ordinary person would consume, in a very short period of time. And afterward, you tend to feel extremely upset with yourself, very guilty, perhaps even more depressed. And in addition, you can't help yourself. Some people with binge eating disorder, and sometimes it leads to vomiting or other methods of getting rid of the food, but sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it can occur several times during the day, or certainly a couple of times during the week. But it is uncontrollable. And many people, resort to some certain kinds of medications, or even inpatient facilities if it really gets bad. But what my friend has is not binge eating disorder. What she has is something that is unfortunately very typical of what we're all going through, which is sort of situational anxiety. I mean, anxiety tends to, like in about 70% of the people with binge eating disorder, precede the binge. People feel they cannot bear the anxiety they're feeling, and when they start eating, they somehow, after this large amount of food is consumed, they somehow feel better. Although, all the studies that I've read do not make clear how filling your stomach up with an excessive amount of food actually makes you feel better. I suspect it's not really all the food once it's in your stomach, but simply the act of eating, that repetitive act of focusing on, the next potato chip or the next Oreo.
Don't you think it's primal in a certain way? I would just, I'm obviously not a scientist, so I get to say, hey, don't you think that blah, blah. But there's something, I think you're onto something between the repetitive motion and the fact that going back to your earliest breaths, that's how you were comforted. You were fed. Mommy fed you.
That's right. That's right.
All throughout the animal kingdom.
You could be actually, for the rats, right, when they looked at this kind of behavior, and they elicited it by stressing the rats, they could give them a piece of wood or something to gnaw on, or they found that the rats sometimes would just gnaw on the bars of the cage, and it was that repetitive gnawing. And sometimes I really wonder when you see, little babies, or not little, but let's say even toddlers, frantically sucking on their in teething rings that they not the teething rings, but the little things they suck on. I can't think of the name of it.
Binky.
That they also are doing this repetitively because it really decreases whatever uncomfortable feelings they may have. But the thing about her eating the chocolate is that it probably did have a positive effect. The problem was that she wasn't eating it correctly. But if she and she was really eating the wrong kind of food. I mean, she happened to be a chocoholic, so I suspect that when she first started doing this, she felt it was okay to eat a little bit of chocolate, because life is so difficult. But then it became really habitual. She never thought of switching to another kind of food. The problem with eating something like chocolate or potato chips or ice cream. I have another friend who told me when she got very stressed these past several months, she would eat a half a gallon of chocolate ice cream every night. Well, the problem with that is that you're eating a food that not only contains a carbohydrate, sugar, which is ultimately going to have some calming effect by getting your brain to make more serotonin that may decrease your anxiety. The problem is that you're eating a great deal of fat. I mean, the reason that ice cream and chocolate and a chocolate chip cookie or potato chips or French fries taste good is not just because of the carbohydrate. I mean, there's nothing particularly wonderful about eating flour, but it's because you are eating a great deal of fat, and that mixture of fat and sugar or fat, flour, and sugar can be extremely tasty when it's done in the right ingredients and it's baked or made into ice cream. And so it is a carbohydrate that is making the serotonin, but it's a fat that's making it taste good. But the problem is the fat contains more than twice as many calories as the carbohydrate. It decreases the time in which the food you're eating is digested, and so it prolongs the time that it takes for the calming effect to be felt. And the third problem is that people who are eating the chocolate, like my friend, don't eat a half of a chocolate bar or 3 Hershey's Kisses,
they eat the whole
for example,
thing.
And then wait until the effect is felt. But as a typical binge eater, they continue eating. And it would be, Jill, as if you were suffering from back pain or had a headache or a toothache, couldn't get to the dentist because of the virus, and you took pain medication. You would take a Tylenol or aspirin or Aleve or whatever you wanted to take. You would take the dose recommended on the bottle, and you would wait until the pain started to recede. You would not continue taking the pill, continuing, just one pill after another until you felt better. If you did that, you'd probably be having your stomach pumped.
Right, and that's the problem. We're going to run out of time. So unfortunately, this is definitely, if you need a piece of chocolate, by all means, but once you become just stop. And let's do a to be continued on this because we really need to remind people how to
Very good.
carbohydrate.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Dr. Judy Wurtman, Food for Mood.